Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. Brought to you by Blue Sky Business Consulting. We discuss 5 questions in about 15 minutes. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. I'm very excited to welcome from the lovely state of Arizona, specifically Scottsdale, in a very lovely time of year. This is Kasim, and he is awesome. I like to say it that way because it's a fun way to make the rhyming work there. So Kasim, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you taking time. And just for the audience's benefit, Kasim is the co-founder of Pareto Talent, and he's also the author that just released a new book called Hire. And so we're very excited to talk a little bit more about teams and all that kind of good stuff. But Kasim, tell us a little bit more about the projects you're working on, and especially about the book.
Yeah, happy to. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've built 6 businesses that have exceeded 7 or 8 figures in revenue. I've had 3 exits, and the only thing I'm world class at is talent acquisition. As a matter of fact, I tend to think that I'm quite a bit more successful than I deserve to be, because once you've cracked talent, you don't have to do anything else. Most entrepreneurs think any problem that walks in the door is their problem. So, I have a finance problem, I have to learn finance, or I have a marketing problem, I have to learn marketing. And really all you need to do is learn talent. And once you crack talent, it's the who, not how. So I wrote a book called Hire. It's free to your listeners. If they want to go to thehirebook.com, they can have not just the book, but a whole collection of resources. And it's a Frankenstein's monster of everybody's best hiring tips, all amalgamated into one book, broken down into 7 steps. So I like to say that you're 7 steps away from the greatest hire of your life.
Oh, that's fantastic. And thank you for making that resource, multiple resources available on your website. That is great. So thank you for doing that. So yeah, definitely everybody pick up a copy of the book and the workbook and the other cheat sheets and everything else you mentioned, because obviously, and for those that have been listening for a long time, we talk about hiring from time to time, and it is an absolutely essential part of growing a business or a team or whatever it is. So thank you so much, Kasim. I really appreciate that. All right, let's go ahead and jump into our questions. Kasim, sometimes it happens that a team kind of falls into a little bit of a lull with their energy or enthusiasm or something like that. What can leaders do to infuse energy back into their teams?
I think if you're working with peak performers, my experience has been that authorship creates ownership. And if somebody's lost energy, my expectation generally is that they're not being given the opportunity to really produce what they know they're capable of, which probably means something like micromanagement, too heavy oversight. We're pushing them in a direction that they don't want to go. So I believe in momentum. And I think if a team has lost momentum, generally speaking, at least in my personal experience, it has less to do with them and more to do with whatever management structure is currently in place. So I think leadership is generally about subtraction, not addition. So what problems have you put in the way? What frictions are you introducing? You or your team? Supervisors and middle management and bureaucratic systems can get really, really heavy-handed. I think that's why small businesses have an advantage in more nimble environments. And that's the question is, I don't think it's about doing more. I think it's about figuring out where you can do less and kind of free them up to perform.
Oh, that's some great insights. I really like those comments. So some symptoms there that you mentioned that I really like about micromanaging and some of those things, because that can definitely influence how much energy they have. And I also like that phrase that you used, that authorship. What did you say? Authorship means ownership or something?
Authorship creates ownership.
Creates ownership.
It's a childish opinion. I don't think my job is to motivate anybody. If you're not motivated, money motivates people. If you're not motivated to do your job, then you don't have a job with me anymore. So if somebody's, if they're having a hard time, I'm going to get everything out of the way. If you have a paved road and you're not going as fast as I want you to go, then you're not the right person for this role.
Boy, I really like that. That's a great comment. Okay, let's move on to question number 2. How do leaders promote learning in their company or in their department or whatever it is that they're leading?
Yeah. So the thing that's really interesting about, again, going back to peak performers, I think the prerequisite is that you're working with somebody who is on a growth path. And so if you find yourself in a position of trying to quote unquote motivate employees to learn, I think you have the wrong employees. I think and there was a study done, I think it was MIT. I might be misattributing that, Sean, but it was, let's say reputable. A study done on peak performers in employment situations. And the most important thing to them, even more important than compensation, is learning, is growth. And so I think it has a lot to do with aligning interests. What I've seen from organizations recently is employees being penalized for doing things like using AI or using tools that help empower them. And that's an inhibitor that is interesting because it could only help you as the employer if you align your incentives with the employee to do things like that. And so I think incentives need to be aligned. And assuming those incentives are aligned, then peak performers are going to seek out growth opportunities naturally. Again, you just have to get out of their way.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I really like the idea of getting out of their way because the peak performers will, in fact, pursue those things just naturally because that's what they're excited about. So
Right.
I love that. Great concept. All right. Question number 3. What's one tip that you have for effective delegation?
I call it the 262 framework. So you're going to delegate something, especially to new employees. Let's say you delegate 10 things. They're going to suck at 2 of them. They're just going to be horrible. They're going to do 6 just fine. Check the box, well done. And they're going to do 2 better than any human who's ever lived. And for some reason, conventional wisdom is to go focus on the 2 things that they suck at. And it's like, we're going to get you there, kid, and we'll do a performance improvement program, and you can shadow Jerry so you can slow him down. And my advice, my strong advice is just don't make them do that anymore. Go focus on the 2 things that they're great at. And, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it spends its whole life thinking it's stupid. Like, find their realm of genius, allow for custom roles. Don't try to be cookie cutter. People aren't commodities, they're miracles. And figure out where a human is a miracle and then allow them to articulate that miracle on a recurring basis.
Oh, I like that a lot. I'm a very, very strong advocate of strengths-based leadership, and that's what you just described is allowing people to find their strengths and then work within their strengths. And I like that, like that you mentioned it very quickly, but don't make a fish climb a tree. It just doesn't
Yeah.
work that way. I like that. All right, question number 4. What are some ways that people and leaders especially can effectively communicate their vision and their mission and so forth to the team members?
It's a verb. It's not a noun. So, I built the #1 ranked Google Ads agency in the world. I sold it in October 2022. And when I sold it, I had 100 employees. And our core values were truth, responsibility, and love. And the reason that people make fun of core values, generally speaking, is because we've all been employees of organizations that did not adhere to the core values.
Right.
So I can run around saying truth, responsibility, love, truth, responsibility, love, truth, responsibility, love. But if I'm not speaking the truth, if I'm not acting responsibly, and I'm not operating in and from love, what does it mean? So I think that the best way to do those things is to live them out and then make sure that you're working with people that live them out on your behalf. The most people you can reasonably manage is 10, and that's excessive in my mind. So if I've got 100 employees, that means I need at least 10 middle managers, which means I need 10 people that are operating from a verb perspective with truth, responsibility, and love. And if I don't have that, one bad apple ruins the whole bunch. So you got to find people that are willing to be verbs, not nouns.
I like that. I like that a lot. It is an action word to communicate that and to demonstrate it. Great comments. All right, our last question. Tell us a little bit about your first job.
I worked at McDonald's. I was 14 years old. I had to have my mom sign something.
A waiver.
Yeah, she had to sign a waiver because I got, however old the earliest it was at the time that you could get a job in the state of New Mexico. And I was the worst employee in the world. I still probably am the worst employee in the world. And McDonald's is the worst employer in the world. And I don't know how they're still allowed to operate. That wasn't much of an anomaly either. I think I had 30, I remember counting, I had 30 some odd jobs before I finally became an entrepreneur. And I was horrible. I was a waiter. I was horrible. I worked at call centers. I was horrible. I worked at a grocery store bringing shopping carts back. I was horrible. I think most entrepreneurs make really bad employees.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, I've asked this question hundreds of times because I've had hundreds of guests on the podcast over the years. And it's amazing how many of them will admit, this was my first job and I hated it. Or I learned very quickly that was not for me. Or they learned, I don't want to work for somebody else. I want to be an entrepreneur. And so it's interesting that through that process of, I don't like to call it failure. I like to call it discovery because that's exactly what it is. When you're a young person and you're understanding yourself and you're discovering yourself, that's just a great way to figure it out is, you know what? I'm just not fit for this kind of an environment, whatever it is, either as an employee or the fast food industry or something else, whatever it is. That's a great comment. I appreciate you sharing that. All right, Kasim, tell us a little bit more. How can people get a hold of you and find you?
They can go to kasim.me, Kasim.me. There's a link there to my free school community. I create one framework for entrepreneurs every week it's absolutely free. There's no cost or ascension. And all my social links are there. Come be my friend. I'd love to connect.
That's great. Thank you so much. And thank you for being on the podcast today. Really appreciate you taking time to come and share your insights about leadership. There were some great comments in there. And thanks to everyone who joins us and is participating in the Team Engagement podcast, whether you're watching it or viewing it. We really appreciate it. And of course, we encourage you to go pick up your copy of Rapid Fire Leadership, which is available on Amazon.com. Thanks so much to everybody and have a great day.
Thanks, Sean.
This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, go to teamengagementpodcast.com. We also invite you to follow or subscribe to our podcast wherever you may be listening or watching. Is your business thriving? Go to tbs-score.com to find out. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great day.